And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City on this wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Don't shake your head at me.
That's
Don't
talented
shake
right
your head.
there.
Don't shake
That
your head
boy's
at me.
talented.
You don't say the things that you said before we start the show. Get inside of my head, asshole.
How about be a little tougher to crack? How about that?
Well, you shouldn't be trying to crack your co-host.
I
So he's
wasn't.
trying to do an open.
The co-host shouldn't be saying the things
No,
that you
no.
were saying prior to
I
the
am
show.
the talent.
Oh, yeah. Nice open.
Today we're going to be talking about wonderful quotes from Aaron Rodgers. No, it was not from his appearance on Joe Rogan. We're also going to talk about the Bengals finding a way to screw up another contract situation with a different pass rusher. I don't know how they've done this. And then we're going to get to some comments made by Cleveland Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders about why he believes he faces so much negativity. Before we get there, Sean, can you share with our listeners a word from fill in the blank?
Bet Online. There we go. It's the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for all your sports betting action. They also have a new tab on the site called the Doctor tab, where you can meet up with Dr. Locks, aka Joe DeLeone, who's going to tell you, I got Thunder 3.5. Why don't you hop on?
Oh, eat shit. It was plus 2.5.
I ate my wallet. That's what I ate. Freaking just ate cash at the bar. That was awesome. Thanks for that.
I mean, they almost covered the 2.5.
Did they?
No.
Okay.
They lost by 30.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Regardless, baseball season is full swing. I am falling in love with baseball again. If we have time, I'm going to show some love to a baseball movie at the end of this that I caught last night. A Boomer movie.
Oh, were you doing were you doing a little research?
I was doing a little research.
Wait, no, what was it?
I watched Bull Durham last night for the first time.
I've never seen it.
It is a phenomenal movie. And this was a movie that my dad kept me from my whole life as a young up-and-coming baseball player. Had I seen that movie, it probably would have changed a lot of my outlook on the game. It definitely would have. Fantastic movie. The Boomers got that one. Great film.
Is there anything to pull from?
You know what? They got the pitcher situation right. They made a quirky pitcher only by knowing what and how baseball players operate. And if you, the listener, think that you know how baseball operates, you can put some action on it at Bet Online. It's in full swing. Home stretch of the NBA, NHL playoffs. It's a good time for sports. It really is. Memorial Day weekend. You got plenty of free time. You're watching some games. Why don't you go to Bet Online, sign up, get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here.
All right, Sean. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Wonderful, fantastic read.
It was my honor.
Sorry, I was trying to retweet the show link. For some reason, Twitter has been such ass the last 3 days. And I know that it's just like the media member complains about the Twitter not working. Everybody was doing it yesterday. Every time I've done any action, it cancels the action. Like I keep trying to retweet things and then I go back, it didn't retweet it. I try to like things. It didn't like the tweet that I tried to like. The DMs weren't freaking working. The whole platform wasn't working.
It's a crazy ass fire, I guess. It is what it is.
You defending Elon?
I'm not.
You defending him?
I'm just saying if they're saying
you defending that pervert?
If they're saying it's a fire, I'm going to, roll with it being a fire. Fires happen. The server rooms get hot, Joe.
I shouldn't be complaining. I made $40 off of that platform this past month. I'm making. They're really paying me. It's really rolling in from X.com.
I'm going to get out ahead of this right now.
Okay.
Here's the problem with being a guy that claims to really enjoy movies like myself. If I haven't seen a movie, people get really irritated. And Ryan Roberts?
Yeah, because wait.
Everyone has blind spots. Everyone has blind
Indiana
spots.
Jones.
Yes, I have.
You said you hadn't.
I hadn't like 5 years ago.
There was another.
They were phenomenal. It was great.
There's another one that you haven't seen, and it wasn't Star Wars. There was one that you hadn't seen that was like really upsetting.
Well, I've seen Bull Durham now, and I enjoyed it. Sorry, RR. My bad. old ass Ryan Roberts is stepping in to defend the baseball movie here. I'm giving him and the other boomers credit.
He's not a boomer.
Does he wear glasses?
That makes him a boomer?
In my book, it does.
I'm a boomer?
Except you are a king boomer.
Great. Thanks. Sean, Aaron Rodgers was appearing on a number of random podcasts over the past week. Apparently, he's coming back out of his shell. He hates the media, but here he is appearing on every single podcast. Aaron Rodgers might have just revealed where he's going to be signing. And there's no shock. It sounds like he's signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he appeared on the Y&K podcast with Mike Stud. That sounds made up.
That's a great name.
Add it to the list of made up podcast names. It looked like it was some sort of a live event. And I think people were asking questions. A young NFL fan asked if he would consider playing for the Chicago Bears this year. And if he was offered. And his quote back was, no, but I believe there's a team that might play in Chicago this year for a road trip. Rodgers said in relation to this, he said this with a very, clear smirk.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was asked if he would name the team. And he said, I don't know. I'm going to check it out. Rodgers said with a smirk on his face. Later on in the interview, this is where it became pretty clear. I'm like, okay, this dickhead's just playing the dumb game that he always plays. Rodgers offered a hint when a Vikings fan said he was excited to see Rodgers at US Bank Stadium this year. And Rodgers followed up by saying, all he said was, that game is in Ireland. He was referring to the Steelers playing the Vikings in week 4 in Dublin. So I don't understand at this point, man. I don't understand why he's doing this shit. And then I'm falling into it. I'm getting mad right now. It's 1:00 on a Sunday on Memorial Day weekend, and I'm getting mad about this. What is the point? Just sign. What is the holdup? What am I missing here?
He stated that he was dealing with some people in his life that were having very serious issues, and that he was holding off for that reason. Which I'll give him space for that. If you're claiming that someone in your life had the big C or whatever he claimed.
Did he claim that?
I think he did. I think he said people were dealing with serious personal issues. If that's what it is, that's what it is.
Who knows with him what that means?
And then when he goes back, this is where people get lost on him. This is where your rage happens. I'm going to explain it. He thinks he's way more charming than he actually is. So when he has that quirky smile and the eyebrow raised, and he talks like it's all eyebrow raised and tongue in cheek, it irritates people because it's not charming, it's smarmy with him. And it's a little more arrogant. There's no in between. Oh, Aaron Rodgers is just being cheeky. You kind of think now Aaron Rodgers is being a dickhead.
Well, if he was doing this back in March, April, hovering around free agency time, before free agency, middle of free agency, fine with it. He's having a little fun with it. He's trying to make his decision. He's having a little fun with it. It's damn near June. He clearly has made up his mind and he's going to play. But here we are pattering around, goofing off, just playing with the hearts of Steelers fans, messing with the minds of all NFL fans.
Mm-hmm.
Pick a team. Pick it. Retire. I'm tired of talking about it. Here we are talking about it. I will keep putting it in the damn rundown.
I like our check-in.
Until he makes a decision. But I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of doing the damn check-ins.
June is not the time for the wry smile. June is the time for action. It is the time where other teams are already working out and they're already getting reps in on the field and learning the offense and how the team operates. It's not the time for wry smiles and imaginary glass tinks off your one-line zinger, Aaron Rodgers. Put the fries in the bag. Get in the lab. Like all of this extra stuff. We're tired of extra. I think we are having we've seen an extra overload, and the renaissance is coming where we just want the guys to be the guys. We just want you to be on the team. See you in the sweet jersey. And here's another truth. The second I see Aaron Rodgers trotting out on a field in a new uniform, I'm going to be back in. But this is the painful part. This is the part where you're sitting in the dentist chair and he's just rooting through your gums with that aluminum floss. And you need to floss more. You're carving the shit out of me, Doc. Let me get out of this chair and get my toy. I'm waiting for the toy. The toy is Aaron Rodgers in a Steelers uniform wearing 12, looking all sexy.
Were you getting a lot of toys at the dentist?
I liked the styrofoam airplanes that you could put together, where it was like a 3 pieces of styrofoam. It's just, about as cheap of a toy as you could get.
I bet that was a real tough puzzle for you.
But you'd have to puncture out the little slots, and you'd put it together. You'd have the wing, you'd have the body, and then you have the little tail fin at the end, the back wing, whatever it's properly called.
Coming out of your ears while you were putting this thing together.
And it would end up being a pretty damn good plane, and you just toss it around. You toss it to yourself all day. I'd wear these things out. Loved the styrofoam airplane. Everyone was getting the sticky hands. I don't need the sticky hands. I don't
think I ever got toys at the dentist. I don't.
That doesn't surprise me. No one seeing your arrangements. Okay, I could see you and your brother just going into an adult dentist office from like forever and just be like, "Oh, hello, Mr. DeLeone. How are you? 7 years old and with a bib on."
We're not going to get too much into the that's not the right word. The history of the DeLeone's background with the dentists. I think I've told you part of this. We're not going to get into that. Let's stick on the Steelers.
Sure.
Do you actually think that if he signs and he ends up being the starter for the Steelers this upcoming year, do you actually think that they're going to be successful? Like, do you think that they're going to be a playoff team? Are they better than they were with Russell Wilson, or is this just going to turn into a combustible mess, a giant distraction? Because I think it's trending towards that. I think he's got a lot more upside than Russell Wilson as a starter.
Yes, agreed.
Over 40. He's not as mobile. We saw that this past year. He still is Aaron Rodgers. He is one of the biggest magicians of a quarterback that we've seen in the last 20 years. He's going to find a way to be successful. We've compared this to Brett Favre with the Vikings. It could be equally as successful. But this is way more distracting. I just don't know if we can survive multiple weeks of him appearing on a podcast, him appearing on the Pat McAfee show, him just saying something, jabbing with the media, just being a total asshat. I don't have a lot of faith that he can't be normal, considering he's already being odd and he's unsigned. Maybe that's why he's holding off signing, is he wants to get as much, spread as much shit out as possible, go on as many podcasts, say as many ridiculous things as possible. Like, we're not going to address some of the weird conspiracy theory things that he said over the last week. Like, maybe he's just trying to get that off of his chest, knowing that if he signs with the Steelers, they're going to hold him more accountable for saying reckless things.
But why would you? I don't know if I was going into a job interview the week before I'd start doing a bunch of petty crime because I'm about to be like about to be living straight for a while with my tie. Hello, Mr. Johnson. How's the coffee today? I just loitered outside of, for 12 hours.
Yeah, but they're begging you for it, this job. Like, they've got nothing else going on. They'd probably let him kill somebody and then show up and then be like, okay, all right, well, you got that out of your system, Aaron. Let's get started now.
I think that to the original question, he would put them in a better spot than if they were just to roll into the season with Mason Rudolph. He would put them in a better spot than if they had retained Russell Wilson another year of that. So it's a pretty low bar for him to beat. And for some reason, he decides, I need to make this low bar a little lower for myself by saying all this crazy stuff on a bunch of shows. Doesn't make sense to me, but he has decided that not making sense to everyone and being weird is more important than being a locked-in quarterback. And that is a tough thing to get beyond if you're an organization, because that works when it's Aaron Rodgers at 35 winning MVPs, throwing 48 touchdowns and 4 picks in a season.
Right.
40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who has had a questionable season last year. Everyone wants to say he caught fire at the back half.
Yeah.
They weren't winning games. He wasn't really, he was there and he looked like at time flashes of old Rodgers, but the majority of the time he looked like Granny in the pocket, throwing a bunch of ducks at the turf because that was the right call. And I'm the vet quarterback that's seen it all. Like, if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers, starts taking a bunch of risks and decides to gunsling it, I'm all for it. But if it's more of this old lady quarterbacking, I don't need it.
Well, I think he was kind of forced into the old lady quarterbacking because you could see, and anyone who's kind of paid attention to guys who have come off Achilles injuries, it happens in basketball a lot more. But whenever somebody has an Achilles, they're a lot less mobile. I mean, this first and forehand from good old Kirk Cousins, who basically was the same as Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah.
Older, couldn't plant, couldn't really drive the ball. His injury occurred a lot later on in the season. So like he had less of a recovery timeline than what Aaron Rodgers did, but you could tell that something was off physically from that injury. I think he'd be different. I would hope the way that his persona is being pushed out currently by him just winging it and going balls to the wall by saying whatever the hell he wants. I'd hope that that translates to on the field where last season, I'm just going to go do crazy shit. If I throw 15 interceptions, I don't care. I'm going to see if I can turn this thing into, go on one more Super Bowl run.
I'm starting to think of older, like legendary quarterbacks recently. Like
none of them they've done the complete opposite. They've all been super conservative in, like Peyton Manning's the best example.
Yeah. Well, Peyton Manning had a neck that didn't work at the end of it and an arm that didn't work. I'm thinking of like Brady. When Brady first went to the Bucs, he was playing a little bit old lady football, but it didn't look bad. Aaron Rodgers is old lady football.
Yeah, because he's always been old lady football. He's always been aggressive, but he's always been decision maker over very detailed decision maker over. I'm going to throw the ball into traffic. He's never been, hey, I think I see a little bit of a gap. I'm just going to try this. He's never been that. He's been the same version.
Was his divorce drama taking place that last year in Tampa? I'm trying to remember if that was like a storyline throughout that season.
I think it was starting to build because he decided to go. I don't remember, but I just remember part of the driving force was that he decided to go back and play. And then that was what the catalyst was.
Yeah, before that last year. It might've been that last year because there's something in me that's saying if I had an option to have Tom Brady still starting for my football team, I would take it because he's just that good and that dialed and he didn't bring the drama. But I can't specifically remember if that last year in Tampa, everything was falling apart for the guy. And that's when Antonio Brown, all that stuff was at least circulating. Rumors, all crazy, batshit speculative rumors. But like, was that happening in his last season? But I don't think that was all like Tom Brady being weird. I think it was just Tom Brady's family life was falling apart.
He couldn't control that. And he was very opposite of Aaron Rodgers, where you won't even know something's happening and he will speak on it. Tom Brady, things are happening and he won't speak.
He's asked about it because, okay, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, completely different. Yeah, Rodgers needs to get a grip still.
Yeah, he needs to get his shit together. We'll see what happens if he ends up signing with the Steelers. This has been a situation, Sean, that has been bubbling. And I want to talk about it. And it's been something that I've been wanting to talk about because it aligns with something we've discussed multiple times. And I'm talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and their situation with rookie Shemar Stewart, who was their first round pick out of Texas A&M. The Bengals continue to be just the biggest group of morons and scumbags when it comes to handling player contracts out of any team in the NFL. And Bengals fans, I'm sorry for you guys. Your franchise is awesome. Your ownership group, the direction of this team is terrible. Currently, what's happening with Shemar Stewart, none of it's his fault. He is handling this as perfectly as he could. He's showing up. He's getting the mental reps, but he's not participating in practice deliberately because of the fact that the Bengals are not budging on changing the language of his contract. Now, you're wondering what the heck could he possibly be wanting to change? The Bengals' initial offer to Stewart included a low percentage of his salary as a roster bonus than what was given to Amarius Mims last year and also the number 17 overall pick in 2024. Now, Stewart's camp reviewed the offer and thought that this was well below market standard, and that was kind of what created the snag. The combination of the roster bonus and also the lack of safeguards that were put onto this where they're trying to protect themselves on having to pay him if he gets suspended, if he runs into trouble, injury, all of those things. The Bengals are attempting to add this, like the first time that this ever happened, they're trying to add a clause that voids future guarantees that were not present in past contracts. So they're trying to set a precedent with Shemar Stewart's contract, and Shemar Stewart and his representation are going, why the hell are you trying to do this with us when other past players were not asked to do the same thing? From his perspective, he's not demanding more money or anything. He's only asking for the contract terms to be the same as what the Bengals first rounders in the past have received. And he even spoke to ESPN saying, I'm not asking for anything crazy. I just want things to be consistent. I just want consistent language as in the past contracts. We already talked about Trey Hendrickson. We already talked about the shittiness that they're dealing to that guy that was one of the most productive pass rushers over the past couple of years. Now they're doing it again at their most important position when they don't have any talent on their defense. If this is happening twice, if this is happening twice in the same offseason span where you're getting dirtbaggy and sleazy and shitty with the language of a contract and the specifics of a contract and trying to completely cheap out on your players that are representing your team, you need to look in the mirror. I don't know who is responsible for making these decisions. I don't know. But whoever it is fucking sucks. They suck. How can you do this twice now? This is an abomination. This is awful. This is unbelievably ridiculous. And I have done a lot of digging into this. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, maybe there's something I'm missing. It's pretty clear who's at fault. It's not the players. It's the organization.
It's incredibly frustrating because the Bengals have promise. And this is something you would expect from a bottom feeder team, a cellar team, someone in the basement, a team that hasn't been able to get right forever. What happens to the Bengals? They luck out. Washington blows it. Cincinnati ends up with a number 1 overall pick in 2019. They get Joe Burrow. Look what happens there. We got a franchise guy.
Yep.
Oh, next year, what do we get Joe Burrow protection, or do we take a risk and get him a receiver in Ja'Marr Chase? Oh, we're going to take the risk and get Ja'Marr Chase.
Best receiver in the NFL.
Holy shit, can you believe that, people? It worked out. Oh, do we need a wide receiver too? Why not? We lucked out with Ja'Marr. Let's get T. Higgins.
T. Higgins was before Ja'Marr Chase.
Oh, he was?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Well, you got both of them. You got Burrow. And then you've had an offense that could compete with any defense in the league. And you have built something the right way. And for some reason, the last couple of years, you decide, hey, here's this nice little cake I've been baking. I'm going to start pissing on it. I'm going to start pissing on the top layer. I'm going to start pissing on the middle layer. And then that base layer, that Burrow, Chase, Higgins layer, I've been trying to piss on it, but I can't really do that yet. You are building a perfect cake, and you cannot stop stomping on it. The Bengals should be good. They should be a great story. This should be a team on the rise that is completely in on talented player that we drafted, talented defensive player that we've grown in-house to be a sack leader this past season. And you completely mismanage it every step of the way, and you're blowing it. You know how short a window is in the NFL. It is short unless you have a top 3 quarterback. And guess what? At times they do have a top 3 quarterback, and the window is still closing. How does that make sense? We are watching a prime get trimmed at the stem, and then eventually is going to get to that rose at the end. And Joe Burrow is going to be 33, and then you're going to be sitting here like,
he's going to be pushed away
happened?
like Staff.
Yeah.
Like, this could be a total Lions situation where it just kind of comes full head of, I can't keep doing this. Send me elsewhere.
And these are the moves. This Stewart stuff, this Hendrickson stuff.
This builds the groundwork.
Exactly. This is where the collapse starts.
First of all, not having Shemar Stewart participating in early offseason workouts and the training plan is really bad because Shemar Stewart was unproductive in college and has been deemed this super high upside, high potential elite athlete that needs work. You have a new defensive coordinator now, Golden Shemar Stewart. If you're not going to pay Trey Hendrickson and you're going to move him, Shemar Stewart needs to have a good first year and needs to have a first great 2 years in his NFL career.
He needs to look like the future.
He needs to be on the field right now. And anyone who wants to talk about, like, oh, it's just a couple of weeks, that stuff is so important for rookies to not have any snags. But the thing that bothers me the most is the disrespect that they are now starting to show that they're throwing towards their players. The mishandling of T. Higgins' contract was the first step in this. The decision to just not communicate with Trey Hendrickson is gross. A guy who has been so important for your team's success and has been the only bright spot. I saw some TikTok clip that had like 100 likes on it that really pissed me off. Some moron was trying to be like, well, when you're on the worst defense in the NFL, it makes it easier to rack up all those sacks. I'm like, that's a dumbass argument. Yeah, that was what I almost said.
Was that on one of ours, or
no,
a comment?
No, that was a random clip that like I don't know, it was either someone else's podcast or something like that. It was like a total no-name show. but that was an argument. I didn't even know that people had an opposite perspective argument supporting the Bengals.
The equipment's too expensive.
Yeah,
it's not expensive enough, man.
Yeah.
Oh God, they need to lock these mics up, and you should be.
I'm for everyone. I'm for everyone trying to start a podcast, but
That
was a bad take. That was a bad take. The worst part of this now comes to full head where they're literally trying to create new contract language for them to be able to use going forward that voids future guarantees based on if something goes wrong during his rookie contract. That is insane to me. That is so disrespectful to say, hey, man, we think you're just, I know this isn't what they're saying, but if I were his agent and if I were Shemar Stewart, I would read it as, we think you're going to be such a big fuck up that we just can't risk it.
It's a prenup.
But if it works out really well, we get all the benefit from it. We get all the great stuff out of it, like you playing well and making the team look better. But if a little bad thing, one really bad thing, like you're done. Like we're not paying you. You don't get any of the money that you were promised. None of it. I would demand to get traded if they refuse to change that language. That is insane. I don't know. From what I read into, it doesn't sound like any other NFL team does this. This is incredibly rare, and this is just dirtbag of all dirtbag things to do to try and screw a player out of money that he's supposed to be guaranteed. Rookie contracts are supposed to set guys up for the foundation of their careers. If a guy is clear-headed and he has no track record of mistakes in college, you shouldn't be issuing this to a guy. I really hope this goes all the way up to the NFLPA and them stepping in and saying, this is gross.
They should.
This is incredibly gross. And I reiterate and repeat, whoever the moron who is in charge of these decisions with these contracts needs to be out. And I'm sure it's some family member of ownership that's the one who's in charge of it.
It's really gross because why? Stewart shouldn't play for them if this is continuing the contract, because why would you draft me then? Like, why would you draft someone else? If this is going to be, I'm your number one pick.
Don't draft anyone.
Don't draft that. Exactly.
Put a bunch of cones out there.
If you
don't own a freaking team if you're going to have this mentality.
If you're so risk averse and you literally cannot, you're trying to language it up with all these guys that could be playing for other teams on a regular risk acknowledged contract because it's a sport and it's football and it's humans colliding with each other at 20 miles per hour in gladiator armor. You shouldn't be involved in this sport if you cannot willingly take a risk on a player without a bunch of conditions applied, especially if he's got a clean track record. Like, why would you draft them then? Why are you in the business of drafting players to your team that don't draft them? Draft anybody else. Draft a fifth rounder in the first round that would take this deal because he would be a fifth rounder. If you really want to start manipulating it, reach. But if the market is deeming Shemar Stewart as a guy that's in the first round, should be taken in the first, let's say 40 picks. Just if you're not a big Shemar Stewart fan, I think you would say he could be taken in the top 40. This is not the treatment that should be bestowed onto a guy where everyone knows the risks of football. Yeah. And Cleveland is trying to game that system. It's stupid. And it's really against the entire it's against the entire tone of football and how everybody has been working within the sport for the last 50 years. It's not how you operate.
I think in like Bill Belichick's roster building philosophy is the exception to this. The best franchises are player first. They reward players when they succeed. They rally around them. They want to broaden their horizons. They want them to be a part of the foundation, those that are succeeding. It feels like all of the Bengals roster building decisions, contract decisions, they're treating them not like humans. They're not. They're straight up not. The Trey Hendrickson and Shemar Stewart and past T. Higgins issues have been them not viewing them as these are young human beings who are trying to build careers for themselves that are so gifted that have a chance to help rally the city and the franchise. I will stand by this. I really think that the Cincinnati Bengals ownership might be the worst in the NFL. And there's some really bad situations. There's some not great ones that are less in our faces. I think that we've been masked by the fact that we all love Joe Burrow so much. We all love Jamar Chase so much. We all love a lot of the things about the players on this team so much, but the ownership is holding back what could be the most exciting team in the NFL in a city that loves football.
It's a team that should be a playoff team every year in the AFC. And there really shouldn't be a question about it. And if you want to throw in a year of odd play or injury every now and again, that's what would happen if you have in a stretch of 10 years with the primo quarterback. It's not going to be 10 years of perfection, but when you are on the precipice of being a team that could win a Super Bowl, the biggest, the best trophy, the most important trophy in all of sports, FIFA World Cup, suck it, Stanley Cup, hold the wood, MLB trophy, doesn't matter. It's the Super Bowl trophy. It's the Lombardi trophy. If you are a team that has the real option, the real ability to go and do it, and your ownership is standing in the way, it's got to be the biggest gut punch you could get as a fandom. Because, I mean, that is a pain. That is an absolute real pain that Cincinnati fans are having to deal with, knowing that this isn't over and there's going to be some more dummy shit coming down the pike later on, because why would they stop now? This is the last thing that this ownership's going to do that is going to have to be go under a microscope. They're not going to go out and walk it back in a PR statement and say, hey, that guy was just way out of line and we made some bad decisions. We're going to try to move. They won't do it. It's the NFL. They think they're too big and too protected to do it. You're getting called out. You're shutting down a window on what would be an exciting team. It is really spitting in the face of the league.
All right, let's move on to good old Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, of course, had a charity event, or I believe he was at a high school for something. Spoke to Cleveland.com and asked him some wonderful questions. He shared a statement. Shedeur Sanders shared a statement on why he believes he receives so much negativity. And I want to know if you agree with this or not. He said they go based off of their own 99% of hatred directed at me is toward Pops, meaning his dad, DeLeone Sanders. And then I'm just his son. But, in brackets, the kids didn't grow up in an era to where they watched him play. He's referring to the fact that the younger generation tends to like him a lot more than the older generation. It's just the older generation that does it to me rather than the younger people. Because when I come in person, there's no negativity I see, but it's all over online. I want to be very clear here. I love Shedeur Sanders. I'm wishing him success. I guess that kind of fits into what he's saying because we're in our 20s. So we've watched only Shedeur. We haven't watched DeLeone Sanders play. We weren't alive for when he was playing. Yeah,
but we're as familiar with DeLeone as somebody in their 20s could be
right
now. That's what I'd say.
I really like Shedeur Sanders, and I am rooting for him. But I don't agree with what he's saying. I don't think that all of this is derived from people that didn't like DeLeone Sanders, the player, because I actually feel like if you talk to most guys in like 40s, 50s, 60s, like if we talk to our dad's friends, they all love DeLeone Sanders.
Oh, DeLeone was awesome. Man, he was awesome. That's what they'd say.
Yeah.
DeLeone, maybe best athlete the league was ever seen. Like that they would laud praise all over him. They just would. He was a freak, generational talent. Like there's an inherent baseline level of respect for DeLeone Sanders among the older generation of football fans. Is that fair?
Yeah, so that's what I'm coming at here is like I do think that Shedeur is off base. And I'm not trying to say that like Shedeur is the reason why he's generating hate and like it's all everything that he's doing. I think that he's more buttoned up than people give him recognition for. I think a lot of people dig into his quotes and things that he says in press conferences and stuff like that and create narratives and spin narratives that aren't there. Like I really think there's been a couple of times, especially after the Nebraska game, where he made a comment. And it's like, well, look at how many times Dylan Raiola was sacked. It wasn't a shot at the offensive line. It was simply a shot at the fact that like, hey, we can't win if I'm on my back.
Yeah.
It's just like we need to be better as a team. We need to be better as a unit. That was how I read into it. So I kind of think that there's more at play here than just people hate DeLeone Sanders. I don't think that the crowd is that big or as big as he's making it out to be. I think that the crowd was big this year and the past 2 years since DeLeone Sanders took over as the head coach of Colorado, but it had nothing to do with him as a player.
This whole saga is so weird because DeLeone Sanders took over Colorado, tragic program, and because he did it in a way with cameras in his face, I think that all of the casual, non-former athlete people were able to just jump in on it like it was a reality TV show because they made it a reality TV show. And people will talk about reality TV differently than they talk about The Wire or The Sopranos or any like legendary TV show. But because of the route that they went, the Sanders family, in deciding we're documenting it, we're putting it all out, it's going to be brash, it's going to be in your face, it's going to be authentic Sanders content. Well, you're inviting in the reality TV show people to come in and comment and give you hate, because I haven't heard anybody say, oh, I love everybody on Vanderpump Rules equally and I don't have an issue with them. Nobody is saying, oh, Below Deck was so boring because they all shook hands and high-fived all night. All these garbage reality TV shows, they draw in the worst entertainment consumption people that we have on the planet. They're not bringing in readers. You're not bringing in critical thinkers to judge your product. You are bringing in not even the average sports fan that knows a little bit about every sport. You're bringing in chronically online, depraved people to come and judge you and the product that you're putting out because it's exciting, you're exciting, and football is the best thing that we have going as a species right now. Overwhelmingly, football is the best thing we got. So when all those factors come together, you are going to be in a blender, Shedeur Sanders. You just are. And are you going to be able to rise above it? These are the steps that you and your team went through. You have to be more proactive. I think they're being reactive. And now you're in the league. It's a chance to be proactive with everything. Be a model citizen, be a community member, be a guy that.
And I think he's already starting to do that.
And I'm Team Shedeur because I'm an athlete and I know that I don't buy in. I'm not biting. I'm not sinking my teeth into the reality TV show junk. I'm looking at him as a football player. And when I listen to him speak, I see him speak as a football player and not Shedeur Sanders, megastar, rolling on my wrist, all of that stuff. That doesn't concern me. What concerns me is Shedeur Sanders throwing dots to Jerry Jeudy on the sideline. That's where my head goes. And I think that's why we can take a different stance opposed to, oh, well, if he wasn't just so braggadocious in his interviews that we weren't in, or if he didn't possibly have the headphones in and bring a crew with him. I don't care. It's the world that you've created. Make something out of it then. He has the ability to take his fate in his hands and do something with it. And he's acting like, oh, well, this is all predetermined. It's not.
Right. And I think that's like a really interesting way to look at it, because it's like looking past the information that's in front of our faces. I think it has a lot more to do with the
it's awful form. Apologies.
You're good. I think it has a lot more to do with the audience that has been brought in that wasn't inherently football fans originally, that then pissed off a different demographic of football fans. Like that is kind of how I've seen it, because there are a lot of football lifers that just love the game of football that don't like that reality TV type of perspective. So the minute that he started tumbling, they were more than ecstatic to watch him fall in the draft and to see all the negative things happen and to see things not work out. I think that, and you and I followed and tracked Shedeur Sanders and DeLeone Sanders when they were at Jackson State, because the first, the early iterations of this podcast were just FCS football.
We did an emergency show when DeLeone Sanders was hired there.
Yes.
Full on, like day one, we were there.
The thing that I found really interesting watching this evolve, we were really early in on this compared to, I think, everybody else. When he signed at Jackson State, DeLeone Sanders went to Jackson State, it was all, this is awesome. This is really cool. This is really unique. Everybody was super positive about it. Goes to Colorado, and the sentiment was exactly the same. This is really cool. This is really unique. We're rooting for it. But as we started to pitch our expectations, and we were realistic about the expectations in the first 2 years. Hey, the first year at Colorado is going to be a little tough. We'll see what happens. Shedeur shows some good things. He's shown he can be an NFL quarterback. Let's see what happens in year 2. There was this weird crowd of people that weren't football fans that kind of just shoved their way in. And I think you're right. I think that at that time was like the inflection point of, that was when it turned into really fun football story into like, here's all this reality TV coverage.
It was culture fanatics.
Yeah.
It is people that are dying.
They don't know anything about the game.
They just want to be on the pulse.
If you read the comments that were happening in these situations, those people that were like really aggressive about responding to like very mild takes of expectations, like just saying like crazy shit in response to if you didn't say that they were going to go on to win the national championship. Those people were insufferable. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. They were reality show people. They were people that loved that this felt like a reality show and they wanted to be invested in it. And they wanted it's just like how the Taylor Swift fans now at the Chiefs, if you say negative things about Travis Kelce and stuff like that, they'll bite your head off. They don't know shit about football, but they'll bite your head off because they don't know what reality is.
Yeah, it's brand loyalty, and it's also confused brand loyalty. And it is like, I'm going to insert myself into this because I want this, or I see myself in it, or this makes me feel good, or it makes me feel bad. And I'm going to insert myself in it, and it's not my lane, but I'm going to jump in. And when you get true fanatics, like the fanatics around DeLeone Sanders and the culture at Colorado and everything about that, everyone comes on, and if overwhelmingly positive brings out overwhelmingly negative. It's just how it is in the social media.
Right.
They got too big. They got too popular. And that brings hate because there's a lot of hating as haters. And sorry, you got too big because people loved you too much. And then the whole arc now, the athlete arc now that people like is Baker Mayfield. They want you to be built up. They want you to fail. They want you to take your licks as an athlete, just like every other normal Joe does when they exit college into the working world. They want to see you have an arc that they think could happen for themselves. That's why they don't just root for you to be a star from day one and you take off like a rocket ship. They don't want that. They want a redemption arc because that's more like TV. Here's the hero. He's built up. He gets crushed. He takes a couple years, then he goes to Tampa Bay and he becomes a good, serviceable quarterback. I like the stars. Joe likes the rookie stars that come out and pop like Jaden Daniels because we're football fans and we just like good football being on the TV. But the people with worms in their brains, they want the arc. They want to tear someone down and then build them up because they have a voice and they can sway the public perception of this one player who's throwing a ball around on a field. It's been a gross mischaracterization of how we're supposed to treat athletes and football players. Entertaining, yes, but gross, double the entertainment value of it. I'm rooting for Shedeur Sanders.
I reiterate, yes, I like Shedeur Sanders. I'm trying to be as balanced. We're both trying to be as balanced as possible in like our expectations for him. I love the crowd of realist Colorado fans and DeLeone Sanders fans and Shedeur Sanders fans. That crowd has been very positive and responsive. I have dealt with many of the folk that don't know anything about football, and they just don't know how to talk about it, and they just don't know how to respond to a middle of the lane prediction for a player.
I work with a guy that went to Colorado 4 years. Our graduating class, so 2020, so pre-Deion there, and he suffered through rough years of football at Colorado, ugly football. And he's a big DeLeone Sanders fan. He's like, yeah, it's great. Everyone loves him at Colorado. People love it. They're excited. He's turned the entire program around. Like, so people that are in it, he's not saying, oh, it's a clown show and I wish there were less care. He loves it because they're winning way more games than they were without him. And at the baseline, that's all these people should care about.
Right.
Is my team winning games or not?
All right, let's move on to Hack of the Week. Sean, what do we got this week for Hack of the Week?
Well, there's a lot of let's do Media Corner Hack of the Week here. Okay. I think we could do a bit of a roundabout. I believe we received a comment about we were discussing.
Someone commented about us talking about the tush push. Sean had an offhanded comment about how Jason Kelce has become insufferable on his podcast. And they responded with, are you sure you're not jealous that you're not as successful at podcasting as Jason Kelce? And that kind of sparked a pre-show debate of like, these athlete podcasts are turning into complete garbo, just brain dead here's what it has become. Mm-hmm. I'm already kind of jumping the gun before I even let you explain it.
Don't worry.
It has become product placement hour for these athletes. I actually don't even know. And I have a, good sized circle of people that I interact with. And I know you do too. I've got a lot of people that I interact with that work in the media. I don't know anyone who tunes into these athlete podcasts. They're produced for the clips.
Yeah.
for some reason they do well on Apple Podcasts. I guess it's the fan bases of these athletes that are tuning in.
You ever talk to one?
But it's
You ever talk to someone that said, "Oh, did you catch what Kelsey said?"
Again, I'm genuinely perplexed, and I know that this will get rubbed as the you jealous haters. You just wish you were the. Yeah, man, I wish I was 6'4" and I was a tight end in the NFL. I would love that. I'd be so excited about that.
I'll note, former offensive lineman. Yeah,
Sean's 6'6". He has to let everyone know that he was 6'6".
Well, there is some. I'm not going to go through this and say I'm not jealous of that guy's life. NFL lineman, absolute landmark of the city and franchise he played for his entire career. In Jason Kelsey, beloved by the people, grinder, an offensive lineman that got acknowledgement. It's all an offensive lineman's looking for every now and then. Not even dying for it every play. Just maybe once or twice a season, radio host comes on and says, "Hey, left guard did pretty good this week." Yeah, that's all that an offensive lineman needs. And you have Jason Kelsey, who is just Mr. Popular, a former role model, someone that I tried to model game after and how he worked and what he did. Yeah, I'm sure there's some jealousy deep down there, but because that's a dream life. But that doesn't make me ineligible from saying that their podcast is a bag of garbage with a bunch of pre-written questions with great guests, because they're very connected NFL players with top-tier producers and guest bookers that have an egregious advantage in connections in the podcasting space. They're not thumbing through the black book to find a guest that's in Nashville that could call in and maybe give them one good answer in a 15-minute segment. They're not thumbing through the MLB book looking for a Rockies connect, because they have 8 wins through 50 games in the season, trying to conjure that up. They're getting A-list stars. They're getting people that the general casual wants to see and already knows. So it fires a sensor in their brain that says, "Oh, these guys are great because they're talking to another guy that I think is great that's made me laugh before." It's a completely different ball game with our show or other shows that try to do some form of sportscasting, and the Kelsey brothers on a Zoom call with Paul Rudd. It's different. It's a different level of this shit. And the casual conflates the two as all being sports podcasts.
Yeah.
They're celebrity FaceTime hour. That's what it is. That's what their show is.
Again, I reiterate, and here's another thing to be very, very clear on. You and I have both produced at big companies. I have produced on these type of podcasts before, been a producer. I know what goes into it. There's a lot of shit that's getting cut out. These shows are really fucking boring. They're really boring. I have sat in on a lot of interviews with big guests. They are really, really boring. I'm not jealous of. I whenever you have to make the statement, I'm not jealous of. That never ends well.
No, of course
but
not.
The success that comes from those shows needs to be taken with a very clear grain of salt. I would hope that, I'm not comparing our show, but I would hope that enough people have enough critical thinking skills and media literacy, which isn't the case.
That's a rough start.
To understand the difference in what creates success for one of those shows and what creates success for, Pablo Torre's show is awesome. Pardon my take. I listen to a lot, but Pablo Torre's show is one of the most underrated shows. Bomani Jones' show, incredibly underrated, and I love listening to his stuff. I don't listen to the full episodes, but sometimes I'm on YouTube, I'll click into the clips and stuff, and he's a really engaging, interesting interviewer. He knows how to drive a point. Ryan Russillo, those are more engaging, interesting conversations because they are able to succeed and create a personality for themselves outside of what they did on the field, because they didn't play.
Right.
They didn't play sports. There's a very small number of former athletes that are really good broadcasters. There's a very small number.
Boomer's been good. I don't know if I'd put him in really good broadcaster, but maybe I would. He's been really good. He's been consistent. He's stuck it out. He has decided to make a career out of broadcasting opposed to hopping on the wave, which is what all these guys are doing. And they've been doing that since Twitch streaming happened. Oh,
Right.
I'm Kyrie Irving. Or Anthony Davis. I'm just going to start Twitch streaming my 2K games. I didn't find any problem with that because it's kind of a different, like, that's a different lane because we know dudes that do that play video games and they have fun game chats, and that's what they do. It's weird when athletes with such big notoriety try to jump into a space of like broadcasting journalistic voice, and they're being covered like, you know, like Michael Wilbon would be covered, or any other big time, whatever your sports hero is, Dan Le Batard. They're clipping them like they're a journalist that's been in the space for 30 years, that started as a newspaper and knows all of the intricacies of this one topic that he's talking about for this 5-minute point of time. But we're treating the Kelsey brothers like the newsbreakers, like they're Rogan interviewing astronauts. They're doing movie promotion plugs. That's what they're doing. They're doing, hey, my guy wants to pop off a little bit. He's been a teammate forever. I'd love to get him some exposure. Fine. That's been the whole new model. We've seen it in the comedy scene of podcasting. The stand-up comedians that I guess, have abandoned the art form and just gone to podcasting.
Yeah.
At least they're funny. At least they got some stories. Athletes, for the most part, are boring people because if you want to be a very successful athlete, you have to commit yourself to doing that, which is early to bed, early to rise, work out, eat clean, don't party, focus on film. If they stayed in those lanes and decided to talk about that stuff where they're true experts, it's way different.
That's what always has been confusing to me. And like my first job when I was at Believe, the main initial premise of that company was like, we're going to find anyone who wants to do a podcast and we're going to help them launch one. So like I had the chance to interact and work with a lot of like not big names, but like mid to lower level guys that like played in the NFL for a little bit, but aren't like super recognizable names. But if you saw their name attached to a Patriots podcast or a Titans podcast, you'd be like, oh, like cool. Let's see what he has to say.
Sure.
They always put up a fight on like I don't want to talk about and break down the game. I don't want to be on and talk about the game the night of the game that after it happened. Like I want to have mental health conversations. I want to do an interview podcast, and they're just interviewing the most boring people, and it ends up dying on the vine because they're not understanding of like that is what people want to lean into. Like find what you can eventually branch off and expand further after you've built that initial audience. The first guy who comes to mind, though, that's been like awesome, incredibly Shannon Sharp, minus the crap that's going on right now.
Yeah.
He has been one of the most entertaining. Ocho Cinco is also the same exact thing. Like they're both extremely compelling and intriguing and fun to listen to because they just know how to go with the flow. They know how to provide a take and provide an entertaining take and actually engage an audience.
And they've committed and they go live all the time.
Yes.
They're all, and you could, it's almost, maybe I'm figuring out this now live on the spot because I don't have a problem with Shannon Sharp. I don't have a problem with a lot of these guys that go into broadcasting and start grinding. I'm almost judging them on, oh, you're being lazy and it's a lazy clip and it's low effort, like I would yell at a player on the field that was jogging on a track down tackle. Like watching a clip of the Cooper DeJean podcast, it's like, what's your favorite Philly slang? Wow. What, did you find literally the biggest low-hanging fruit tree and decide to bake a nice pie?
I know a 27-year-old producer wrote that question
Of
down.
course. It's low effort.
Hey, Cooper, I think this would be a really fun clip, guys, if we ask this question.
It's a loaf, and it's a loaf from management to let them do that.
But they don't care because they know if they post that clip, it's going to get...
Exactly. But I don't like the loafs. I like the guys that are putting out full effort in the space, like Shannon Sharp, who's going to do a 3-hour interview with 2 Chainz with tons of cameras and have clips that'll last a full week because they're committed to being in the space. A twice a week athlete podcast just for the socials and to throw up a betting promo or a Pepsi or whatever at the end just to flash it. It just does not feel like the exact, like working in the same space.
And I think there's like a number of companies that just kind of like lean into this because they've figured out they
know what the algorithm wants
to
force
people. They know the algo. They know that like they don't need people to tune into the full thing.
Who was the first NBAer to bust your ass? that's going to be a good story.
What was your welcome to the NFL moments? The always one that they constantly get. That was always one that I freaking wrote down as a 23-year-old, 24-year-old producer. Like, what was your? Here's how I kind of read into it. There are definitely former athletes that do their podcast, like we just talked about, that like we love, that do great shit, like you just talked about, like where they understand this is where the value is created. This is how they build themselves up. Shannon Sharp is Exhibit A. I compare some of the rest of these that like get going, and then Carmelo Anthony podcast, great example, awful, uninteresting. The podcast P with Paul George, uninteresting, awful. Jeff Teague podcast, funny, interesting. They're dicking around. They know how to do a good show.
Yeah, but that's a diamond in the rough. It takes, but I flipped around completely on Paul Pierce as a commentator when I saw he did a radio guy bit and walked 22 miles to his studio because he made a bold claim.
Did I say Paul Pierce? I meant to say Paul George.
Paul Pierce
is Paul Pierce is great. Paul Pierce is turning into a
that completely flipped me around, because that's something that if we made a bet on this show like that or made some statement, I'd walk to the that's what a podcaster would do.
Great bit.
You wouldn't expect an NBA champion, a 10-time All-Star Paul Pierce to be doing that after making millions and millions of dollars in the NBA. But he committed to the bit, and that's what I will respect.
This is what I compare it to. And there's one guy that I'm thinking of right now that fits this description, that you know who this person is. He is a friend of mine. He works in the same industry as us. Okay. We talked about him last night.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a demo of adult, like 20-year-old male that fits this description, that is incredibly good looking and tall, and thinks that they don't have to put any effort in to developing a personality. They think that their personality is just being good looking and tall.
It's a good one to have.
And speaking clearly. But when you actually start to have conversations with them, you realize, he doesn't have any original thoughts. The way that I look at this is, there are a lot of these former athletes that get into the podcasting space are like, I played in the league. My agent, my manager are telling me, like, you're going to be great at this. Like, you have all these former teammates. They're going to want to come on with you and stuff like that. They think that is what builds their media career, is like, I'm just going to just stay who I am, not develop and learn how to be an engaging host, not learning how to be unique, to find the unique angle. No, we're just going to sit here. We're going to do an interview. The interview is going to be over. And this slappy 20-year-old is going to cut all these clips for it, instead of finding and really digging into, how do we make the show unique? That is where, when I was a producer, as I am as a host right now, every single week I am reevaluating and going, what do I need to do to make this unique? What do I need to do to make this different? How do I make this stand out from every other morons that are sitting in their living rooms with their buddy that are just sitting here talking football?
And if you're an athlete that wants to be a me guy, I don't need to prep, I just have stories out the ass. There's not many of them. Saw McAfee could do it. He was one. He was a me guy that was interesting enough to build a career off of being a me guy. That is rarefied air. There are not people that are, and if there are, they get found. Jeff Teague. That is a guy that is a me guy that has stories. It's a great storyteller that can carry it. Stern was not the best broadcaster, but he was the most interesting me guy that was around in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. That's why he was so big. Everyone else, regular broadcasting, chipping teeth to get to that level of not having very interesting me guys. These athletes, there's no way in rotting hell that Cole Kmet is a good me guy. Why does he have a show?
I forgot he has a show.
Why does he have a show? And Cole Kmet could be a great dude. He could be a great teammate, brother, son, father, whatever he is. But he's not a great me guy, because we would have heard about it. We would have known. That's how it happens.
Like, you would have had here's where at least I will give Jason and Travis Kelce a little bit of credit. As they've been playing before they started their podcast, there would be a press conference clip or an interview clip that would gain traction.
They were buzzed. They always had buzz.
This is interesting. This is unique. This is funny. It would catch your attention. If I don't have that, when was the last time that a Carmelo Anthony or a Paul George interview was like, oh my God, this was hilarious.
Holy, could you believe
like,
that?
hey, did you see what he said? Like, or like, I'm like, oh, this was fun. I'll send it to my buddies. Never in a million years has that happened. Jeff Teague, I don't know about when he was playing.
He was mid 2010s. He was playing.
No. I'm saying that when he was playing, I don't know if there was ever like really an instance where I was like blown away by anything.
No.
He again, diamond in the rough, like where he kind of came out of nowhere because he was never broadcasted in front of our faces.
You know what dudes send each other, Joe? Beetlejuice clips. That's what they send each other. They send each other Beetlejuice clips. And we're giving a podcast to Cooper DeJean and Blankenship. Reed Blanket, whatever his name is.
Give a podcast to Beetlejuice. That's all we learned. All right. Do we have any voicemails or do we want to close out?
No voicemails
Okay.
today. We do have a couple questions, but I guess we could save them. I mean, yeah, they're evergreen
Okay.
enough.
We'll save them for Tuesday. At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, 201-834-4308. Call in with your voicemails. We need more voicemails. At Hack City Pod. We'll talk to you guys later. We'll be back on Tuesday.